A psychiatric term coined in 2002 is now being applied to feelings of apathy caused by the pandemic. Languishing is described as a, quote, sense of stagnation and emptiness. And now some mental health experts say acknowledging that we are languishing is the best way to help overcome it. For more on this, let's bring in Adam Grant. He's the author of Think Again, The Power of Knowing What You Don't Know. He's also an organizational psychologist at the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. Adam, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. You know, I read your piece in the New York Times and this idea of languishing. I thought to myself, I wonder how many people are going to have these light bulb moments just reading your piece and seeing what exactly constitutes languishing. So first of all, define this term for us. What is languishing exactly?
Well, it was a light bulb moment for me too, because I've had these occasional feelings during the pandemic where I feel like, okay, I'm not depressed. I'm not feeling hopeless. I'm not burned out. I still have energy, but I'm not necessarily looking forward to the future. And I feel like I'm sort of stagnating, like I'm a little bit aimless and a little bit joyless. And that's the sense of languishing. It's where you don't have any symptoms of mental illness, but you're not the complete picture of mental health either. It's basically the absence of well-being.
So then, Adam, what are some day-to-day suggestions you have for people who are languishing? Because, you know, one of the takeaways from your piece for me was just knowing that you have a name for that kind of feeling, because it didn't seem to fall within any other kind of categories that we had talked about really extensively in the months during the pandemic in 2020.
Yeah, I think naming it is a first step, Elaine, because in a lot of cases, it sort of lurks in the shadows, right? You don't notice that your delight is dwindling a little bit. You don't notice that your drive is fading. And when you can't name your emotions, it's pretty hard to figure out what's causing them and how to change them. So I think saying, yeah, that ongoing sense of meh, that indifference to your indifference, okay, maybe I'm languishing right now.
Exactly.
Well, if languishing is stagnation, what we ultimately need is progress. For a lot of people, the pandemic was a big loss. And one of the ways that we begin to escape this sense of languishing is to find small wins, to just achieve even a miniature goal, right? A little bit of progress, a little bit of momentum can give us a sense of efficacy, of competence, and also something to be excited about tomorrow. And there's evidence that at work, for example, that the single strongest predictor of your engagement and your happiness is just that your sense that you're making progress, right? That you're not standing still. So any goal you can achieve, any task you can move forward on is probably a good place to start.
So you discuss a concept called flow in your article. What is flow, Adam, and how can it help people who may be languishing right now?
Flow is that magical experience where you become so immersed in a task that you lose track of time, of where you are, even sometimes of who you are, right? It happens when you disappear into a great novel. It happens when you're completely lost in a riveting movie. A lot of people experience it while driving or while playing sports when they get totally absorbed in the activity. And the great thing about that sense of absorption is you don't really notice your own emotions, right? You're sort of one with the challenge or one with the goal. And what stands in the way of flow for a lot of us is being constantly interrupted, right? If you have fragmented attention, you can't really get focused and absorbed. So I think we need blocks of time where we can concentrate, interruption free, which for a lot of us has been easier said than done the past year.
Yeah, absolutely, including this reporter. So, Adam, you know, I think people might wonder, well, languishing doesn't sound so serious, maybe, but you know, one of the things I wonder about is, could it lead to something more severe down the road? And what can people do to help those who might be languishing right now from entering a more severe mental health state?
Yeah, the sociologist who coined the term, Corey Keyes, has actually found that languishing in some ways is a bigger mental health risk than depression is. Oftentimes when people are depressed, they seek treatment, right? They seek help. When people are languishing, they tend not to seek care. They don't seek out as much support. And that means over the next few years, they're at greater risk for falling into depression. So I think the first thing to do if you know somebody who's languishing is to reach out and ask them how they're doing. And usually that requires a follow-up, right? No, really, how are you actually doing? I think showing a little bit of your own vulnerability, describing some of the moments where you've been languishing is a decent way to open up the conversation. And then from there, it's obviously not a one-size-fits-all solution.
So, as we sit here, more and more people are getting vaccines, and people might be, thinking about what are things going to look like, say, 6 months from now. What advice do you have, Adam, for people as we start to slowly, potentially head into a post-pandemic era?
Well, I think the best advice I got for that actually came from an astronaut that I talked to last year, Scott Kelly, on my Work Life podcast. I'd called Scott because I thought if anybody knows how to get through a remote world, it's the guy who lived in space for 340 days straight. And Scott said the thing that got him through his year in space was setting a goal that he was going to come back to Earth with the same energy and enthusiasm that he had when he left. And I thought that was such a great idea for all of us to think about through the pandemic, right? To say, okay, I want to come out of this pandemic with the same energy and enthusiasm that I had January, February 2020. And creating that mental picture gives you something to look forward to. It also helps you work backward a little bit and say, okay, what do I need to do over the next few weeks to get myself to that place?
It's such a great piece of advice, and I love that analogy too, because it is going to be like re-entering this world that we all once knew not that long ago. Adam Grant, a pleasure to talk to you. Adam, thanks very much.
Thank you.